Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing the Stifling Dark, a 2 to 5 player game of objectives, lurking in the shadows, and abject terror. The Stifling Dark is a hidden movement game. This is over on Kickstarter. I'll have a link to that down below, and it is a prototype. All rules, components, all that stuff, subject to change, and what we see here, we don't necessarily have all the stuff. There's going to be different encounters, different enemies you're fighting against, different things like that we don't yet have all of that, but let's go ahead and dive into this one. This, like I said already, is a 2 to 5 player game in which hidden movement is the core mechanic of the game, although with a bit of a twist because you're not necessarily trying to track down the in this case, the Butcher. The Butcher is going to be the character we're talking about over here, but in this case, you're not necessarily trying to track down the Butcher so much as you are trying to accomplish your own objectives as you wander around the board and eventually have to choose into a branching pathway of choosing different objectives, at which point one of those objectives might be trying to hunt down and kill the Butcher. You're going to be doing that by being mindful of your characters in the game, your characters as they are on this territory, on this map over here, and slowly moving around the board. On your turn, you're going to take your actions as a full round order. We have great players over here covering the round order, the investigator actions, your objectives, the Butcher's things, all these things, all the players cover everything there, but you're going to be wandering around the map trying to be mindful of trying to search for various locations and achieve your objectives, be mindful of the doors, wandering around the locations, be mindful of dark spaces that will take more movement to move into, all while trying to be mindful of your actual character sheets at the same time. Specifically, again, a whole bunch of characters over here, lots of character variety, but specifically be mindful of your minor abilities, your major abilities, and then tracking your speed, stamina, flashlight, and how alive or possibly dead you're slowly becoming. You see, in the game, you're going to have stamina as well as your flashlight, and those are going to be things you're going to be trying to be balanced as you try to run across the board, as you try to use your flashlight. The flashlight is one of the cool mechanics of the game because the flashlights are going to have these acrylic overlays that effectively go on board spaces to light them up. Because this is a hidden movement game, the Butcher is going to be tracking their, well, everything over here behind on the secret player screen. Butcher's going to be tracking all their stuff over here, noting how they're moving around the board and what they're doing as they slowly try to stop you from achieving your objectives, or depending on which endgame objective you go for, trying to just, survive and not have you kill them. But you're going to be using these acrylic flashlight overlays as you wander around from location to location and then choose to shine your flashlight, orient it however you want, tracing a pathway, ensuring all the various spots are completely within that bubble, while also making sure to trace lines to that depending on if you had different kind of doors or pathways or trucks or objectives in the way, and then choosing to light up any spaces. That will both protect you from the Butcher on that round, but it will tick down your flashlight tracker as you go. Every round that you don't use your flashlight, it will refresh. Every round you use your flashlight, it's slowly going down. The same is true with your stamina as well, although you do have to be mindful of your health as you go through that as well. You push your stamina too hard, and you will start losing health. And the problem with health is health is going to not just eventually kill you, but additionally, health is going to come along with these extra little mitigations that will stop you from being as powerful as you once were until you deal with those. And so you're wandering around the board over here, trying to wander around the board, searching locations, trying to activate the various individual areas on the board to accomplish your objectives until you eventually go to that endgame branching pathway and figure out how you're going to try to win. Are you going to try to tackle the Butcher? Are you going to try to escape? What is going to be your endgame objective in this scenario? Meanwhile, you're dealing with the specific scenario encounters as well, and the various weathers and conditions and all the things affecting that. You're dealing with a specific endgame boss that you're fighting against, who's going to have their own way that they handle any number of different things. The Butcher slowly stalking around the board, increasing your chill, and slowly just making you terrified and afraid while they utilize their action cards to slowly try to take you out. This game, like I said already, its hidden movement is the core mechanic of the game, while the actual goals and objectives are very different because in most hidden movement games, you are actually trying to track down the person and eventually hunt and kill them, versus in the Stifling Dark, that is only one of the possible endgames. You're trying to accomplish your objectives while somebody stalks you in the night, which is why it's important to be trying to place your flashlights and get cover from your various characters, while also being mindful of the fact that sure, you might patch the Butcher in your path, you might light up where he is, you might stop him from being able to track you down, but you're also slowly burning through your batteries. You need to be mindful of the weather, the things that are going to slowly be influenced the weather as you go throughout the course of the game, so you're trying to balance all these different things as you feel hunted in this game, because yes, you are the people who are technically hunting the Butcher, but as the game progresses, you are the characters who are going to feel hunted in the Stifling Dark. Once you've gathered enough evidence tokens, you go ahead and move to endgame, choose your final objective, and see who wins or loses as you go through this game. And so let's go ahead from there and talk about my opinions of this game, starting off with ease of play. Rulebook is prototype rulebook, so less ideal than an endgame, than a final product, but overall fairly comprehensive in what it's doing, and that's balancing a few things, because it's balancing the main core, how you play the game, while also dealing with specific tips and tricks around the scenarios, around the Butcher, all those different aspects that are unique to, well, what we have over here. Overall fairly easy to go through. It follows a fairly standard hidden movement thing. There's some aspects about movement, about, how you're going to be be rolling your extra stamina die to run around the board, utilizing spaces, how the flashlight works. Overall fairly clear, lots of information, but fairly clear to process. As far as game time, this comes in at roughly 90 minutes. I believe it's rated as 60 to 100. Actually, no, it's rated as 90 minutes. That is accurate. 90 minutes is roughly accurate for this game, and it's saying 3 to 5 player, and I believe I said earlier 2 to 5 player. Apologies for that. 3 to 5 player, although I don't see a reason why you couldn't play it 2 to 5 player if you're willing to control multiple characters yourself. With that, as far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like over here, this is hidden movement. Hidden movement is a genre I generally have enjoyed. Even though this one does flip it on its head, it still has hidden movement. It still has that deduction aspect as you wander around the boards, and more specifically, the particular thing that I like about this game compared to other games in the genre is this flashlight mechanic feels very thematic as well as works well in the game. And as well as the fact that you're dealing with the batteries the entire time, as you're dealing with your flashlight power and whether you're going to be able to keep it alive or not, which gives you this constant sense of tension of when do you use your flashlight versus when do you turn it off. And the combination of hidden movement combined with a sense of batteries failing, combined with the understanding, and there's going to be lots of other cards, lots of equipment cards you can use along the way for a variety of effects to power up your flashlight, or perhaps weather will mess you up as well at the same time, so there's good and bad things happening at the same time. But that sense of tension is definitely prevalent. You might need to use your flashlight 2 or 3 rounds in a row once you've slowly tracked down the butcher, but that also means that the entire time you're constantly trying to choose when to protect yourself, when to protect the other players, when to light up spaces, because one of the things you can do is the darker spaces, if you light them up, you can move through them without expending less movement, which can really help you, especially as you're trying to get to different buildings on the board and gather those tokens. The downside is that's using power. And so you're in this constant push and pull mechanic of trying to figure out when to utilize your flashlight, when it's helpful versus when you're burning up a precious resource that you will need later. And that sense of tension is incredibly prevalent, especially, and I've only played with the butcher so far, but especially as you deal with the butcher and as he wanders across your pathway and as he starts messing you over, as he starts running closer to you and starting to inflict you with spine chill and starting to show you that he's really there and getting in your way, and suddenly you feel the need to constantly have that flashlight on. This is a game where you are technically the ones who are hunting the player, but you feel very much hunted by the butcher. You feel very much like he's tracking you down as you try to scramble across the board gathering your objectives, and then when you head to that end game, trying to choose between escaping versus tracking down the butcher, as tempting as it is to track down the butcher, there is that sense of fear prevalent in, will you actually be able to get what you need done? There is that sense of tension, that sense of feeling hunted. This game does so very well, comparable to other games in the hidden movement genre, where the players who are in the open feel like the hunters. In this game, the player who is hiding feels like the hunter, and the game flips that script on its head very nicely. Additionally, the variety of bosses, cards, characters, maps, all those things give you a lot of ways to engage with the Stifling Dark, and again, we're dealing with a prototype here with not all the content for the game. But the variety of different ways you'll be able to interact with the experience, having a similar game state, but with just changing up the boss you're fighting against will completely change the way you engage with this, gives you a lot of variety to the experience. That's in addition to the various items, the host of characters we have, a lot of different things that give you a sense of variety to the overall experience. As far as what I don't like in the game, there's really 2 things, and one of the things is something I kind of talked positively about, but ultimately for me is a con, which is that sense of feeling hunted by the hidden player actually for me takes a little bit away from what the hidden movement genre is to me generally. I like the sense of tension, I like the sense of being hunted, I like all that. This game gives you a great sense of tension. Stifling Dark gives me, I would say, a better sense of tension than most other hidden movement games have given me. But it does feel a little bit less like the puzzle that hidden movement games have given me, which is generally what I like in the genre. Instead of having a degree of trying to figure out exactly where the butcher is at all times, I'm less concerned with where he is and more concerned with where he isn't. I'm not actually trying to track him down all the time. I'm just trying to stay alive and out of his reach, which gives me a different puzzle. It gives me that sense of feeling hunted and trying to stay alive, but not so much trying to figure out where is he, where did he go, how can I slowly trap him with the characters around us. Again, if you choose the end game, trying to hunt him down, that will change a bit, but that general sense of a puzzle of trying to track down a hidden movement player and take them out, that sense is gone. This game flips the script of how hidden movement generally is operated, and it does so by giving a good degree of variety to the genre, but ultimately I think I prefer the puzzle over the sense of, well, the sense of being hunted. Additionally, I'm going to say that I'm not a huge fan of the general art and aesthetic of the game. From the obviously numbered spots on the board, the very, very publicly, everything just feeling a little bit like it takes away from my degree of immersion on the board, from the actual art on all the cards as well, which tends to be very dry. If we go ahead and like pull up some of these cards over here, you can see the art is very, very low-key, lo-fi, I'm not sure the correct term, but just not a ton going on. This game dials it back as far far as the overall presentation, the cover looks great. The cover gives you that very haunted feeling, but the further degree of immersion in the game, I'm less entranced with what this game is doing. As far as what I can see others not liking, a few small things. First of all, hunting the killer can definitely feel tough. This is not a game where you are after the butcher in a typical sense, where you are slowly closing in on him and taking him out. You are trying to survive, and that does mean that sometimes it feels like the butcher has one up on you, and it can feel very one-sided in the power dynamic of the game, although that does shift if you don't focus quite as much as hunting him and focus far more on achieving your objectives, where you have more of a degree of survivability. If you focus on staying alive and completing objectives, it feels more balanced, but especially if you're walking into this with a degree of general experience with hidden movement games, it might feel a little less like you have that sense of control, because you don't in this game. Secondly, wounds can slow you down. Wounds, along with their mitigations, along with the extra degree of the ways they're going to limit you in the game, means that the players in the game, as they slowly get hunted by the butcher, can feel less powerful and can feel more inhibited in the game, which might take away from your sense of fun. The idea that you're managing multiple resources, you're managing your stamina, your flashlight, you're managing the wounds slowly building up. You might start off the game at full peak health, and then from there be constantly managing the things that are getting in your way instead of the things that make you feel more powerful. Now, you do get other stuff in the game that will help you, so there is that trade-off as well. But this is a game where you might feel crippled and hunted and having your health slowly depleted as you go through the experience. As far as final thoughts and rating on the Stifling Dark, overall, I really enjoyed what the Stifling Dark does, with caveats. Overall, this one that gives me a few things that, first of all, it stands out in a crowd. In a crowd of hidden movement games, this one very much stands out because, at least from the ones I've played, I'm used to that sense of you working together to hunt someone down. And this one's very different. It gives you that hidden movement, but a killer hunting in the dark. And thematically it works, and it adds the tension in the game. You do feel hunted. Playing as the main players in the game as opposed to the butcher or the hunter, whoever the character would be, you definitely have that sense of feeling hunted. You have that sense of tension, that feeling of survivability. When you combine that with the flashlight mechanic in the game, all that works really well, as well as the resource allocation aspect of your flashlight, trying to manage all that works well to give you that sense of terror in the engine, which works really well. That's the part of the Stifling Dark that works great for me. But as far as the hidden movement aspect, I find that I prefer the puzzle of other hidden movement games, the puzzle of tracking down a player who is hidden on a map, and so this game gives you a huge sense of positive in many ways, while also ultimately feeling less like the hidden movement that I overall enjoy. Combine that with the aesthetic of the game, and overall for me, the Stifling Dark is a 3.5 out of 5. I very much enjoy this one. I think it's doing some incredibly creative things. I'm curious to see what the final game ends up looking like. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, if you want another dark and twisted game of hunting down killers in the hidden movement genre, Letters from Whitechapel is going to give you the ability to hunt down Jack the Ripper and slowly kill him, or less slowly kill him, because honestly he probably deserves to die. And secondly, from there, if you're looking for something more thematically similar to Stifling Dark, Final Girl will additionally give you that sense of terror. It'll additionally give you that sense of the odds being stacked up against you in a solo game as opposed to a head-to-head game. But Final Girl from Van Ryder Games is another game if you're looking for something that thematically feels similar to the Stifling Dark. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.